In studio once again with the lovely Josh Ryan, and we're going to start it off talking about one Canadian who I guess excelled maybe a little more than others, winning the Lou Marshall Award.
Yeah, Lou Marsh winner for 2019, Bianca Andreescu, wasn't really a shock for anybody considering how she won the U.S. Open, her rise from not being inside the top 50 back in January to finishing in the final 8 at the end of the WTA season. A really phenomenal run for her in 2019. Signs of more to come, hopefully, as many tennis fans are looking forward to. And she really sort of took the entire sports world by storm in August. So there wasn't really a true challenger. Maybe you could make an argument for Connor McDavid's excellence, but that feels a little boring in terms of narrative, which often comes into the picking of awards. Brooke Henderson, one of the nominees, certainly a deserving nominee as well, but you can't really compare that to just what a spectacle it was to see Andreescu win back in August.
For sure, and then between Andreescu and the whole Davis Cup thing with Canada, Canadian tennis has just really shot through the roof. Josh, I know you're a big tennis insider here.
Oh, I don't know about that.
Well, we'll say it for the sake of the conversation, but you know, what do you think is the reason that it's been growing so much, I guess?
Well, we've talked about it in previous years, even back when we had Gloves Are Off. Part of what's helped this rise is that sport development program they have in Toronto. They have the tennis academy there. That's been a big part of developing a lot of the guys that are playing as well as they are right now, including Milos Raonic, who obviously has had a great 4 or 5 years now on the circuit. Andreescu obviously is the latest to come from that. Aliassime is another one. And there's going to be more, I think. In the next 2 or 3 years, you're going to see a couple of other young Canadian tennis players pop up in the top 50, and who knows after that. But it's a great time to be a fan of Canadian tennis, and I think 2020 is going to be a big year, especially with Shapovalov bouncing back.
For sure, and I mean, after this buildup of this year, you know, I'm getting into tennis. Other people who possibly weren't into it beforehand are now, you know, it's getting the attention it probably deserves now.
Yeah. And, of course, we'd be remiss to mention that Andreescu is not the only Canadian to win a big award this week.
For sure, coming out of the Big 12 in the United States, college football, running back Chuba Hubbard wins Big 12 Offensive Player of the Year. This is the first time, I think, ever that a Canadian has won the award, and the first time since 2002 that a running back has won the award. And, I mean, Chuba Hubbard, he's just been on a tear this year, tearing up every team, rushing for, you know, over an average over 100 yards per game, 1,900 on the season. That's more than anybody else in college football right now by almost 200, while still playing one game less than majority of those high-end running backs. So he's really something to see, and especially with the Heisman Trophy finalists coming out today, it's really something that, you know, it's exciting for Canadian football players.
Absolutely, and it's bodes well for his future, obviously, heading into the NFL draft possibly in the spring. We have the football playoff coming up. I know lots of people will be excited about that. But for those who really aren't aware, there's not that many awards ahead of this one when it comes to conferences like that. So it is really significant to have a Canadian get to that point.
For sure, and he beat out some amazing football players, including Jalen Hurts, who, you know, he is really high up there, and especially when it comes to Heisman talks as well, he's right up there as well.
For sure.
So that's something huge. Something not so huge, though, also for a Canadian team, has been the Raptors as of late.
Yeah, a bit of a slide the past 3 games. To quote Alvin Williams, who I saw talk about this on radio over the weekend, you have to remember, one, that the 3 teams they lost to were all good teams, top-level teams in the league. 2 is that the Raptors are trying to figure out how to get Kyle Lowry back in the mix after he was gone for such a strong stretch of time. And 3, it's not like they got blown out in these games. All of these games came down to basically the final minute of play. When it came, specifically with the Miami game, it was an OT game, right? So it's not as big a, oh my goodness, maybe they're not that good a team. They lost tough games to good teams while figuring things out on the fly. The Fred VanVleet knee injury is a little more concerning, but then we have Terrence Davis Jr., so that's always a good plus to have in the backcourt.
So do you think it's maybe even more concerning with the whole chemistry thing between Kyle Lowry and maybe the rest of the starters here?
I don't really, because it's an NBA championship team, and a lot of it just takes time. It's tough to go from not playing basketball to playing 3 tough games in a row. I'm honestly more worried about the Oilers moving forward, because while I'm in an island on this prediction, I said that depth would be an issue, and it's starting to become an issue now. You still have 2 of the best players in the game, but if no one else is scoring and you're playing against tough competition late in the season, that could be an issue.
And especially now that James Neal has started to cool off maybe a little bit, scoring less goals than Lucic in the month of December. I guess it might be something for the Oilers to be worrying about.